Hello, this is Alia and Kelly from Women Who Lead and Sell. And today we are interviewing Suzi Gray, Amazon #1 best-selling author of Brand the Way You Think. And what did we talk about? We talked about how branding could be quite superficial, that it doesn't need to be, and that her theory is that we tend to go to branding about what we're doing, and it's very difficult to differentiate yourself when you're doing that. And she posits the idea that actually you should be more about branding about what you think about what you're doing, i.e. be a thought leader in what you're doing, and that way be a unique voice for your business. And you don't have to be loud, don't have to be extroverted, you just have to be in alignment with your inner voice about what you think about what you're doing. And she's got a methodology for that, which is really interesting. I personally loved it. She talked about people who hoard their genius. You'll hear about that. And plenty of other things. Kelly?
Yeah, it's a real paradigm shifting conversation, especially if you're a founder, an established founder who, you're trying to find time to sort more marketing issues out. Suzi lays it straight and is like, well, there's probably some issues with your branding, and directs you straight to, let's unpack how you think. The reason we really wanted to have Suzi on is because we see founders struggling with all the different things that they need to do. And we want to make it easier and more effective for you to run your operations and more effectively, more profitably, but also with a lot of ease and joy. You'll find in this episode, it's kind of like a serene feel to it. Suzi is the most articulate but caring thought leader. And I think this is one where you can just sit back, maybe grab a notepad if you want to, but really just let what she says absorb. Like, let the magic just come in and allow her thinking to shape the way you're going to move next. And it's so important for founders because, you've got teams around you, and everything you think, the more we can open that magical box and have it out there in the world, the better you're going to do. So yeah, we're really looking forward to what you tell us about this episode.
And as always, please like, share and subscribe. We want this conversation shared with so many female founders who we believe will find it really useful. Welcome. So nice to meet you. Kelly knows you really well. I don't know you so well. So I'm going to really dig into what you do. I'm fascinated. So you've written this #1 Amazon best-selling book called Brand the Way You Think. What do you mean by that? Can you explain?
Yes, of course. Great question. So we live in a world where so many people are focused on branding what they do because that is easy, that is obvious, and it's necessary. We have to build a brand around the thing that we're doing because that's what we have to offer. That's what people are paying us for. But when you need to really distinguish yourself, differentiate yourself, and make it easy for somebody not just to trust you, but to choose you, then my recommendation is to build a brand around the way that you think. So I say when you brand what you do, there will always be competition. But when you brand the way you think, competition becomes irrelevant. And this is really about building your thought leadership and building your perspectives, your points of view around the work that you do so that people get a really good understanding of your brain, how your brain works, how you are going to solve problems with them, how you move through the world, your values, the way that you embody the wisdom that you have. And when you put all of those things into power perspectives and share your ideas with generosity, that is when you are really branding the way that you think, and it's complementary then to what you do, and it helps close that trust gap for people, so that it's much easier for them to say yes.
And so what you're basically saying is, if I'm right here, what I'm hearing is that it's a way to really differentiate yourself and create a uniqueness about your offering. Because not only is I coach other coaches, but my opinion about coaching other coaches or how coaches operate is XYZ. And that could be my unique way of thinking. And that could well have come from jobs I've had and experience I've had, and then what my hobbies are even, and all that comes together to create this unique thing, this unique way of approaching life, which is me, right? And it's fascinating that you say this, because Kelly and I often have these conversations and we go, oh my gosh, that's really an interesting way of seeing things. And we shift stuff for each other in the way we approach and think about things. It's sort of like, and we often refer to it as gold. We go, oh my God, that was gold. Wish we'd been recording this, right? These exchanges that we have. What is it that your clients ultimately get out of this? Is it that they feel much more comfortable and sort of authentic about, this is my thoughts? Well, how does that work? And can you tell me a bit about, how do you get to that point with them? What's your process?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it's what I work with so many of my clients on is, I say you're sitting on a gold mine, but you're going to keep it locked, or are you going to actually share some of this gold with the world publicly, not just in the client work that you're doing, not just in the private conversations. It's one thing to blow people's minds, like when they've already said yes, but you've got to get them in the door first. And so when you're actually sharing that gold and recognizing the value of it sooner, that is when you're going to really close that trust gap for people, so that it makes it easier for them to say yes. So in terms of how we actually get there, how we actually find that gold, for me, it's really about just asking the deeper questions, being willing to go to places where they maybe haven't considered going before, because they live with their own brain every single day. They're so close to the work that they do, they can't necessarily recognize what is gold and maybe what isn't, and what could be shaped from, like rough diamond and polished and sparkle, and make it something that people become really obsessed with and really want to know more on. So it's about being willing to have those deeper conversations, to ask the questions, and to be brave enough to tell the truth. That's really what this is about. It's trusting yourself with your own truth, and believing that there are people who really, really want to hear what you have to say, even and especially if other people aren't saying it, because thought leadership is not about just becoming an echo of what already exists, of what already is being said out there. That might feel safe to do, because we know, okay, I'll be okay. I'll be okay if I say something that's been said before. There's proof there, it's validated already. But that's not really what is going to shift other people's perspectives. And that's what we're here to do as thought leaders. We're here to actually make people think differently. It's when they think differently that they will act differently. And that's our job. It's our job to create insights. And so we need to find what those insights are, and how we can shape them and share them in a way that is really going to land like lightning with somebody else, and make them feel like, my world is different now that I've heard that. That's what we're trying to get to. And you can't do that without going into that gold mine and really digging for the most brilliant stuff that is often the stuff that is most hidden.
Why do you think it is hidden?
Because so many of the people I work with, they've been doing this a very long time. They are brilliant at what they do, so much so that it feels kind of second nature. And they can start to believe that because it comes so naturally to them, it comes naturally to other people too. Or other people already know this stuff. And it's just not the case. And so I call it genius hoarding, actually. They the most brilliant kinds of gems. Do you? Yeah, many people do, especially if they're smart, especially if they're, intellectual. They, yeah, they hold on. They hold on to stuff. I've described it before as, I don't know if you've watched the TV show Sort Your Life Out with
Yes.
Stacey Solomon.
Yes.
So yeah, people hoarding, and you've got to clear through the clutter. When you're smart, like you've collected so much knowledge and developed so much wisdom over the years and years you've been doing it, that sometimes it can be difficult to actually like have clarity and be able to distill like what is the gold. And you've got to search for it a bit, and then when you do, it's like you can see everything clearly again, you can breathe, and it becomes so obvious what to share with the world, and what those perspectives are, and what you really want people to remember you for, to know you for, to associate you with. And yeah, it's not usually like the best stuff is not usually just sitting there on the surface.
If you're listening to this podcast, you're interested in hearing other people talk about the questions you want to ask about growing your business, and we have the space for you. We have something for you in that regard. Kelly?
Yeah, we've set up something called the Future Room that's filled with female founders who are asking the same questions as you. It's a safe, non-judgmental space where we can really just like talk about what's going on for us in good company with women who want to grow. So come along and join us. It's on LinkedIn.
What's going through my mind as you're talking, quite apart from that, I'm laughing at myself and going, I am definitely a hoarder of ideas. So many notebooks. I know you are, because I've seen your notebook library practically. Is Simon Sinek, I don't know what his book's called, something about the why, right? Simple concept. It's not unique really, but he's presented it in a unique way. And my other favourite is Death by PowerPoint, which is that amazing talk about PowerPoints and how to present them. I'm pretty sure people have talked about PowerPoints and don't make them boring, but somehow he took something very simple, and I know he's turned that into an entire intellectual property, asset really, and is doing all sorts of things. So I think I know what you're saying. It's fascinating to look at it. I mean, you've created a bit of a paradigm shift in me, and you've definitely nailed who I am. Like, yep, definitely. Are you doing this? Yes, yeah. I am, and I'm sure there are plenty of really smart women out there, female founders, who are over-delivering on stuff, refining ideas, working on them. They've worked on them for years and years and years. What advice would you give them to declutter and get to that golden idea? How do they find that golden idea?
Yeah, it's not a simple answer. But I think you have to be, this is why I say it's so much about trust, because it's not that the ideas aren't there. It's, you have to trust yourself enough to know that it's worth sharing, to know that it's actually worth talking about, worth building a brand around. So it's more about exploration. So when I talk about, I call it wisdom branding, and the first part of the framework is to explore your brain, because you've got to understand what's there, and finding that golden thread that runs through like everything, especially when you've achieved so much, as the people I generally work with have. You've got to really like take a look at everything and think, what is the golden thread running through this? And that can start to then show you the opportunities for what your big idea could be. Sometimes it can land like that, and you can immediately know, this is what I say all the time. This is what, when I say this to someone in conversation, like they always react, like their eyes go wide and they just light up and they want to hear more. That's a really big clue that you're onto something there. But maybe you don't have that yet. And so you've got to actually have conversations with people. You've got to start sharing your ideas, at least with people you feel safe with to start with, so that you can get a bit of that feedback. And that's why it's so helpful to work with someone who can be objective and who doesn't live in your brain every day, because they're actually able to pinpoint like, oh, that thing you just randomly dropped in conversation there, like it was nothing. That just blew my mind. Like we need to build something around this. We need to, turn this into a point of view, talk to someone about it, create a piece of content around it. And it's only really when you're willing to share your ideas in the wild that you can start to get that feedback, to understand what's landing, and then build some shape to it. So that's if you're, doing it, just wanting to do it on your own. And of course, I do have a book that will help with this process, because
Yes.
it is often about just, what are the questions that you need to ask yourself first to kind of just start digging, seeing what comes up. And then it's got to be something that you're really excited to stand behind, that you can talk about with real conviction, but that is also unconventional or disruptive in some way. We're here to shift the status quo, and so it's got to be something that people haven't heard before in quite that way. So like you say with Simon Sinek, his book, and I think really the concept that just catapulted him to fame, if you want to call it that, was Start With Why. And it's not revolutionary necessarily, but it's the way that he framed it and talked about it made it feel like it was. And that's really what we're doing when we're branding the way we think. We're building an idea that is going to land with someone in a way that something else hasn't, even if we're not, creating something brand new.
Yeah, I think also when you are like framing something, like saying something like that, the death by PowerPoint, I think also you're giving people an access, a simplicity. I think the ideas that I come out with, when I come out with stuff, and often I'll say stuff that it just drops out of my mouth from, years of experience and this, that, and the other. And Kelly would be like, that's just dropped out of your mouth. That's amazing. But they're often my most simplest ideas, where I've distilled something down and gone, poof, here's a hack.
Yeah.
And I'm a great believer in, we live in a very complex world. And I think if you can demystify stuff and simplify it, like you're doing and like we do as well, you can just go, look at it this way. That's when I often get people go, oh, the backward, wow, that's interesting, is where I've taken an idea and gone, consider this. And I'm not saying anything revolutionary, actually. I'm just reanalyzing or giving an analogy. They're often a good way of people doing things. I'm interested because you said something here, which I think a lot of people will find would be something of a relief to them. You said something along the lines that you don't need to be, what was the phrase you said? Something about you don't need to be loud. Here we are. You don't have to be extroverted, colourful, or loud to really lead from a place of values. So I think you're right. I think people are getting a bit confused about branding. They're thinking it's more exposure, and I don't want to be exposed, or more about more personal stuff, or louder and more extrovert and a bit overhyped. You're not saying that, are you? What are you saying?
No. So I think you're right with when people think about personal branding, they think I have to share everything with the internet. I have to be so vulnerable that it makes me uncomfortable. I have to share everything. I have to be on social media all the time, and that's the only way to build a personal brand. And some people do that and love that, and that's fine. But not everybody does, and not everybody wants that, but they still want to be visible. They still want to be known and recognized for the value that they bring to the table. And I think when you lead from a place of ideas first versus lifestyle first, for example, and so people are following you because they want the lifestyle that you have, and then they buy what you sell because they want it. when you lead with your intellectual property, when you lead with your perspectives, that's when you're really building a personal brand that has the way you think at the center of it. And that means that you don't have to be loud, bold, extroverted in terms of the way that you show up. Of course you can do that. And it's like a muscle that you can build over time if that is something that you do want to get more comfortable with. But you do have to be okay with sharing what you think. Like, you can't get away from that part. It's just, how do you want to do that? Because I've been in business over 10 years now, which is crazy to say. But I've really built that off the written word. You know, I don't do that much showing up on video. And that's not necessarily even because I don't want to. It's just not been the priority, and that will shift, I'm sure. But you can absolutely build a brand, a reputation, and a really beautiful client base based on just the written words, saying what you think and creating the insights that people need in order to perceive you in a certain way and to trust you.
Yeah, got it. And we'll jump in here, Kelly. What can you see?
So I'm listening and I'm learning. It's so nice to hear your perspective coming through in questions, but I'm thinking about me as a founder, busy, when I run my previous businesses, and my time and my energy and the budget that gets allocated per quarter to developing me and the business, that usually goes to marketing or this or that. And there's so much competing for my attention in terms of like where I develop things. And what I was thinking was how important this is. You use the words constellation. Like, there's a constellation of ideas in this woman, in this founder, in her brain, why she set her business up. And I'm like, how important is it that a woman, a founder, has access to what you're saying in order to build her enterprise? And let me say that in a simplified way. We know we can choose to upgrade our websites, launch another product. You know, there's various things, but all of that takes time and energy and money. But this feels like it just unlocks so much. Like many of the founders that I've worked with, even just in the last 5 years, they can often be buried in their own businesses. They're so busy, you know, and they're doing great. They really are. And they're serving and they're growing and they're amplifying their impact through their message. But they do get quite worn down by the enormity of the business and all of the activities and leading a small team. You know, we only work with founders up to a couple of million, but they really do get buried. But this process feels like it unlocks them, because unlocking their brain and their brilliance and the way they think, it would be their thought leadership, yes, but it's also like letting people understand them, their team. Like, it's a leadership route as well. And it kind of deepens them. And yeah, that's what I've read the book. I've been aware of your work, you know, for 5 years since we met. Suzi and I met on a mastermind, and we've stayed kind of distant, but I've always been aware of your work and how it's developed. And it's on my wish list to do work with you. But I'm like, oh, it's just so interesting. It feels so soft and subtle, really. Like you don't push or force. You're just like, dup, dup. Like, I'm so aware of your messages when they come through. It's so subtle, but so important. And I just feel like that's really, really a critical message for women to hear. Like, if I was listening to this, and I know our listeners will be, it's a much quieter conversation. It's really considered. And it doesn't have to be doing everything at once, but it's like looking really at what you're doing every day and like revealing the layers of that. So it feels like medicine for me. It feels so regenerative and restorative for a busy founder, especially in these times. And I know we're going to be saying that for hundreds of times in the next years, you know, because of the flurry and the influx of all these different tools that are really like AI has been very freeing for me. It's helped me pull apart some of my thinking, but it would never replace the essence of working with somebody that's a creative thinking partner. So yeah, that's what I was thinking, how important it is for a founder to hear this process and to hear the possibility of it, to free them and have. How long typically, Suzi? That's what I was thinking, because I know that's what a listener I would want to hear. How long typically is the process? Is it like 3 or 6 months or 9 months? Does it depend? Can you give us an insight?
I think it's a forever evolving process, honestly. I think you can do the work to really uncover what you want your big idea to be. What do you want people to know you for, to remember you for? What is that message that you really want to lead with, and potentially even start a movement around? You've got to get clear on that first. And that can be something that, like I had a conversation with a client the other day, and we'd nailed it in less than an hour. But it's not always the case. Like, she's got a lot of work for me to, I could hone in. I was like, it's this. How does that land with you? And it's like full body chills received. And then everything has changed for her since that conversation, just in the way she is showing up, her online presence, and the momentum she's already building with that is remarkable. But it doesn't always work as immediately. Sometimes you need a bit of back and forth. You need the processing time, the reflection time. Some people, they want to discover it themselves, as opposed to have someone say, I really think it's this. They love to be in the creation phase. And yeah, it can take a bit more back and forth, and then you want to test your ideas in the wild, as I mentioned, and see if this is the thing. Like, people are really resonating with this, and I'm feeling so much strength behind what I'm saying. And then it's just about sharing it more. Repetition is something that people are often afraid of. They think if I say the same thing over and over, people are just going to get bored with what I'm saying. But to your point, Kelly, actually, about, marketing, you're so busy with the marketing will only work if you've got your brand solid. And if you're working so hard to try and get your marketing working, it's probably because you actually have ignored the brand. And you've got to get solid in that idea, in that message first. Make sure it's clear, make sure it's distilled, make sure it's something different, that really opens the doors to the kinds of conversations necessary to get where you want to go. And I think sometimes people think branding is just the visual side of thing, but you can build an incredible business with pretty much no visual side of things, if you nail the message itself.
What you're saying is, if you haven't got the building blocks, marketing is going to be like hard work. I think that's our experience of things. When things aren't working, it's like when you first start learning to drive a car, it's like flaming hard work, thinking about the gears and all that. Once you start to be very practiced with it. And what you're saying is, it's much easier. What you're saying is, this is a practiced idea. You've talked about this golden thread. What you're really saying, I think, is somewhere in all of us there's this unique take on something we're passionate about, whether it's stamp collecting, business, doing up old cars, whatever it is. We'll have a theory about that we would stake our life on, sort of thing, and we'll talk for hours about and drone on and on and on about. I know I've got some of those myself, and there's an ease to that because it feels natural. It's like the way your mind thinks. So naturally you get into the groove, I suppose. I suppose what's going through my mind is, would you say, as a practical point of view for our listeners, that they should start maybe capturing these things that they don't think are, like, doesn't everybody think this? Start capturing those and then maybe testing them on friends and family and going, what do you think of this? Does this make you think? Would you... Is that something they could be doing?
Yes and no.
Okay.
So yes, with conditions. So absolutely capture your thoughts, but be discerning about who you share them with for feedback. So I have, learnt over time that I could share an idea that I had with someone who knew I ran a business, but was not my ideal client, was not in my market, didn't run a business. And so, how important is their opinion to my progress? If I sought feedback from somebody like that, it could actually throw me completely off track. But they're not the person my message is supposed to land with. So make sure that if you do want to share this stuff, it's with someone who is actually share it with someone who
it's intended for, I suppose, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Share it with someone who could be a potential client, or who at least knows what it's like to run a business, or is familiar enough with your work that it's going to be a relevant opinion to receive. But the most important thing is the trust in yourself to just share the thing. Sometimes I say, think it, post it, think it, post it. Like, there's no need to hoard the stuff in your notes app. Yes, share it with people, but also just put it out online on whatever profile suits you, and just get into the practice and the habit of doing that. Because that's more important, is building your own trust muscle with sharing your messages versus asking for someone's feedback in order for you to feel validated enough to do so.
Yeah, it's funny. You use the word trust quite a lot, actually. And one of the things you also say is you say, quit outsourcing your decisions, write your own damn rules. What kind of rules are you talking about there?
Oh, I can't remember where I would have written that.
Yeah, you said that apparently. Is there a rule? Do you see, if there was a rule that you feel you've broken and gotten a positive from, what would that be? Or what would you change? Gosh. Are there any rules that you kind of go, no, that doesn't work? What do you notice about? Sometimes there are kind of rules that we kind of impose on ourselves, don't we? Particularly around branding and how we should be on social media. Are any of those, do you look at any of those and go, no, that's not necessarily true?
Probably plenty. The one that's coming to mind right now, which may sound contradictory actually to some of the things I've said, but I'll try to explain, is a lot of people will say in a marketing context to explain it as if I was 5 years old. Like, you need to be able to explain your thoughts, your message, so simply and so clearly that a 5-year-old could understand it. And I agree with that to a point. That central, that big idea. Okay, fair enough. But when it comes to the perspectives, when it comes to really talking about and sharing your thought leadership, this wisdom that you have developed, if you are trying so hard to dumb it down, then you are doing yourself such a disservice. Because if you are meant to work with a certain caliber of person, they have got to be on a wavelength with you. That you want to feel like, oh, this is how I feel, at least. I want to feel like I've met my match, I want to feel like our brains are in partnership and they can create magic together. But I won't necessarily make them feel anything if all I share is kind of just really, really simple, really easy for anybody to understand. Because I know that for my clients, they want more than that. They want deeper than that. And so I really consider a lot of my stuff to be art. It's intellectual art. I don't want to sound like anybody else. I don't want my words to feel so simple that they're not really remembered, that it doesn't really create feelings within people. And so I definitely think that is a kind of rule that for someone like me and potentially your listeners could have you sort of like sandpapering your edge a bit. And that's not what we want. We want our edges to stay sharp. So that's one of a kind of rule that we hear a lot that I don't necessarily agree with.
I like that. Can I jump?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Are you sure? Am I allowed?
Yeah, you're allowed.
I'm
Go
only
on then.
teasing.
I'll let you.
I'm going to go back to, so my mind works in different ways. So I'm thinking about what you said would build your trust muscle, which I loved. And I agree. You have talked about trust a lot. And I kind of just get that from your essence. But, that's really lovely just to feel that there and the strength behind you saying like trust that you can say it and be with what happens when you say what you feel, what you know. So the trust muscle thing, from a little while ago, you said about intuition. It's an intuitive process when you work, like two brains working together. I love that. And then I'm going to go back to my point earlier about this unlocking for a woman. That's what's happening for me as you're speaking. I'm going, of the women the listeners that have been messaging me, who are feeling quite burnt out, at the top of their career, don't know where to go. When I look at them, I go, they haven't opened their box of intellect and imagination yet. Like they haven't. They have worked within the boundaries of their industry and maybe even push that a little, but they're literally like so contained that no wonder they're feeling, at their limit or burnt out is what they describe it to be. So I'm kind of swimming between those concepts like intuition, intuitive process. Even you've mentioned about like some people just love to discover, and that, I definitely identify with that. I just love to be in the unknown and understanding like where are the threads? What are we discovering here together? But I just wondered, in all of that, what I said, my question is, what can you share with us about what you've learned about your own trust in your own intuition and your own intuitive process? So I think that would be fascinating for listeners.
That's such a good question. I'll go back a little bit. Maybe it's worth just sort of sharing my journey somewhat. So I started my professional career as a lawyer. So it's so different from what I do now. So I was really, brought up within a contained, this is how you communicate and these are the rules. Obviously, I'm really simplifying it here, but that was that. Like I was a creative person who was put into a corporate environment, and you sort of feel like your creativity is just sort of snuffed out. And I had a real journey with imposter syndrome, which maybe that resonates with some of your listeners too. Trusting that I had the right answer was really tough for me at times. And obviously I was so young back then, and I think it's maybe something we all have to go through, but it's not nice to feel like a fraud within your job. And of course I wasn't a fraud. But you get those feelings. Like I suppose that's what imposter syndrome really is. It's like, I'm going to get found out, or if I don't have the right answer, then something bad is going to happen. And so I didn't have trust in myself back then, and it felt awful. And there was no reason for me not to have trust. Like there was a reason I was chosen for the job. There was a reason like I was given the projects that I was, and that I had the success that I did, but it didn't feel good. And then when I transitioned into more of a creative role and I sort of rediscovered that side of myself, it feels more like a playground. It's somewhere where you can really experiment and get to know yourself a bit better, and the different ways that you could approach a problem. And so I think really it's like an element is just putting in the reps, is the more you solve problems, and the more that you see the results from solving those problems, the easier it becomes to trust yourself. So there is an element of just like, you have to just build the muscle first. But then once you actually see, if I trust my instincts, and if I just say the thing I'm thinking without worrying if it sounds silly, or without worrying about being judged, or without worrying that someone's, just going to dismiss it. If I just let myself say the thing, most of the time it lands really well. And you just, you chip away. And I've obviously learned to do that more and more. So even now, I can feel really, I don't want to say nervous, but you get that sort of anticipation of like sharing this idea that you've got and wondering how it's going to be received. And it doesn't always land, but that's okay. That doesn't mean I'm not going to share my idea next time. It's data, every time we allow ourselves to trust our instincts and to share from a place of intuition, then we get the data, and then we can use that to help us make better decisions in the future. So I think the blend is really important. It's not just about the intuition, but you've got to be able to trust that in order to get to a place where you get the data you need to make certain decisions.
And so you move from a professional way of making a living, right? Which I understand. I'm also qualified as a solicitor. And then you went into the entrepreneurial world. But did you have an entrepreneurial experience when you were, like, what was your first entrepreneurial experience? Was it what you do now? Or have you done something else in your life entrepreneurial?
No, not like other than when I was a kid, like trying to sell perfume on the side of the road that I made out of water and flowers.
Yeah.
But no, like I don't come from, entrepreneurial families. I actually, when I did decide to leave employment, I moved from my legal career to a recruitment career, actually, very short lived. But I went to a recruitment company to set up a legal division there. And I soon realized this wasn't for me, but it really showed me my love for communication and really being very careful and intentional with the way that I put words together. So it led me to what I'm doing now. But when I decided, I am going to leave employment, I went from there to a creative agency. When I decided to leave employment, I had to email my parents to let them know. And I laid out all of the pros and cons. Like, I've already considered this. I know everything you're going to say, and here I've got an answer for it all.
I would just interject to say that I totally get that, because for those of you who don't know, it takes something like 5 to 7 years to qualify as a lawyer, much of which time you're supported by your family. So when you turn around and go, actually, I'm abandoning that career, bye-bye, you do feel this obligation to explain it, don't you? So I'm so with you on that, mate. I'm with you in that email for sure.
Yes. Yeah. I didn't want to have the conversation face to face, because I knew that they would really struggle to understand, and they would probably try to say, don't do this, like, see this out, try something else. And I was like, no, this is the direction I'm going in, and I'm trusting myself. So I can't remember what the
big step. Yeah, it was a big. I'm just curious to know, because it's a very different mindset being a professional to then being an entrepreneur. That is quite different.
Completely. Yeah. And the real kind of, like, I had no idea that online business existed, until I just stumbled across something one day, and I thought, wow, someone is getting paid for doing this sort of work in a really cool way on the internet. I think I could do that. I know that I'm a great writer. I know that I'm creative. Like, what if I gave this a try? And I made that leap. And initially I had so I was working at a creative agency at that time. So that had really introduced me to copywriting, and working with clients in a creative context. And I had an arrangement with my employer at the time they were supportive of me going and starting my own business. And I actually took some of the work from them. So they took a cut and I took a cut, because I was the only writer in the agency. So it was like, here's a win-win. And it allowed me to start the business with already a little bit of income I knew was coming in. But yeah, it's been the biggest journey of self-development that I've ever been on. And you can make a leap like that, especially when you're young enough and you don't really have any responsibilities. Like I did have a mortgage to pay, but I didn't have children. It was easy enough at that point to say, I can try this. And if it doesn't work, then I can fall back on my law degree or whatever. And so, yeah, I set up my business as a copywriter. That was what I did for many years. So I was very much service provider, and there would be deliverables attached. And yeah, the growth journey is just like nothing else. And that's, the business has evolved over the years. But yeah, I didn't have, I guess to a degree, I've got an entrepreneurial spirit and mind, but it wasn't because of, that had been modeled in my family or anything. It was just, I got that feeling like, this is what I want to do, and therefore I will.
See, I have this theory that entrepreneurialism is a true creative act. I think that, and often it's all about unfinished business, especially when you have a business that fails. It's like, okay, that didn't work, but I've still got this yearning to create something and leave something in the world that exists and because of me. And that's got to be about creativity, really. It's not really about transactions and money so much as I'm creating something to contribute to the world. And I find that a lot with our female founders, don't you? They're really driven by their mission and purpose. And I think we even said that to somebody, one of our guests once, didn't we? We said, are you finished yet? Oh, it was Dorian. Dorian works with Zapier, and she told us this charming story about how she had this candy store in her locker, and then how she moved on some other businesses, and she'd gone back into employment now. And I just got this impression from her that it's not over yet. There's still some more of Dorian to be out there in the world. And, when you think of lawyers, you don't think creativity, really, do you? I think you think, I don't know, there's like this fixed opinion, but I actually regard myself as really creative, for sure. I'm always coming up with ideas and things. And yeah, I definitely feel like this compulsion to create, and that means businesses for me. Other people, it's works of art, or books, although I'm writing a book as well. But what do you? I mean, you're very creative.
Yeah, I'm very creative. I am, and I think I always was, but I was in the confines of different roles, and that was good because you're going towards goals and objectives, and that's fine. But it was unpleasant. I think you said about something didn't feel good. Like, it was just unpleasant. It just felt like a straitjacket. It was just so strange. And I'm still, as you're both speaking, I'm still thinking about the different women that I'm around, and some that are still employed or they're dancing with, some employed, some freelancing. And there's just this creative pursuit and this expression that wants to live through them. And their industry or their workplace or team would be, there would be a disservice if they didn't share it. So again, coming back around to, when we invited you to come on, I knew how important it was to share just your unique perspective, because we know there are, hundreds or tens of thousands of people that have, like, I do relationship and sales troubleshooting, but really what I'm talking about is dignity and care and relationships. But, the label is sales and relationships consultant. So it's just so important to drive home that you are really worth tapping into, like you're worth tapping into, and take time and invest in that process of unpacking and discovering and exploring how brilliant you really are. And all those concepts will make the world a better place, or even the small world around you a better place. I think that's what's so important. And even just last night as we were preparing, I'm such a listener. Like I'm like a 7-year-old sponge. I'm going, oh, yep, that's how I feel I walk around in life. And it gets a little bit, it gets a bit cluttered up here in my brain. But, you don't realize, like, you'll just come out with a model when we're, having a coffee. And I'm like, babe, Like, again, and no wonder I've got papers all around me because I'm trying to like log things that people are saying. It's like there's just so much brilliance and magnificence, isn't there, in the world? And it's like joining those dots. And that's definitely what you've shown me. And I know that you show others. And it's so important for our listeners who, whether they're at the start of their journey or whether they are looking for that next level, as you called it. And I love that you said, oh, it's funny to say next level. And it kind of is, but we do know there's a kind of like a personal frontier. It's like you feel this like, what is this thing that I need to cross? And I just urge our listeners to like listen to this. It feels very soothing, this conversation, and to consider, what you've been sharing with us. Will there be more books? Will there be more?
Yes,
what's more?
Gosh, I don't know. It's quite a process, and I poured myself into it, and I definitely don't want to say never, but not yet. I've been through it. I've got 2 young children, and it's really been about pouring into them. And I think, one day when I feel like there's a new body of work to move through me, and I've already got things percolating, then yes, there may well be more books. But I'm really proud of this one. And I think it does encompass so much of what I believe in and what I think is really going to make a difference, especially now, in the era of AI, and your intellectual property is going to matter so much. Like that will become so much of your competitive advantage is really developing that intellectual property, which is one part of it. When we talk about ideas, this is really what it is. It's about that IP that you can take ownership of. That's going to be so important. So we will see.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
But any last questions for you?
I think around what you do, and you mentioned AI, what are the biggest pitfalls around AI? Where do you think it can serve our female founders in trying to figure out their brand? And where do you think you've got to be careful? There's a bit of a pitfall around it. What can you see with the female founders that you're working with who are using AI as a tool?
Certainly in the context of the work that I do, which is, I'm certainly no AI expert whatsoever, but I can understand that it has its uses, particularly in pattern recognition. So if you really want to, you could feed AI your life story and get it to ask you certain questions, and then you could ask it to show you the patterns, show you the gaps, the opportunities. It's really good at things like that, to create awareness, to maybe show you the things that you haven't seen or realized, and move from there. But I think what the biggest pitfall really is people who are using AI to actually outsource their thinking. I see it as a powerful thought partner, but if you are just getting it to do the thinking for you, not only are you rotting your own brain cells and your own ability to think, to be creative, to challenge yourself, to solve problems in new ways, but you're also really limiting your ability to be perceived as different and unique. And I think we're going to see a real pendulum swing. Everyone is using it at the moment, and that's fine, to test it and to see how it can support them. But the internet is flooded with content, and so much of it is starting to sound same. Our attention spans are literally shrinking, and so we're going to have to do something more different if we want to be noticed. So I think the pendulum in time will swing back to people taking back certainly the creation process, bringing the authenticity, the humanness to what they're writing, to how they're sharing their ideas. But you can see it now as like, this is such an opportunity to be able to stand out, because so much of it is just slop that's generated by robots. It doesn't mean there's no value to it, but there is a real opportunity to kind of to find your own voice, to really lead with your perspectives and point of view, and use your creativity to be this beaming light in somebody's feed, and that is automatically going to create, you know, instant connection and hopefully instant obsession as well, which is really what we're doing with building brands and developing our thought leadership. So yeah, use this opportunity for sure.
So
Wonderful.
true. I mean, one of my favorites is Professor Scott Galloway. And I just love the way he talks about stats and economics. I mean, it's pretty, you know, lots of people talk about stats and economics, but he'll give his twist on it, which is really fascinating. I really look forward to his letter coming in. When I see that, I go, oh, great. I know I'm going to be entertained. I'm going to be educated. He's going to make me think. So it's so true what you're saying. How, where can people find you, Suzi? And do you have your book that you can sort of waggle about and show us?
I do. I have a copy up there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, there it is.
My
that's so
husband bought me a framed copy. Bless him.
Brilliant.
Do you have another one here?
And where will people where can they find you?
So my website is captivationhouse.com. I'm also on Facebook. I'm a Facebook girly. My personal profile on Facebook is probably where you'll find the most of my work, my thoughts. I'm on Instagram as well. I have an email list, and of course, you can jump over to Amazon, grab the book if you want to dive into it more. And I will at some point come back to LinkedIn. I feel like I lived there when I was a lawyer and then completely shifted, but I really feel like it's somewhere to be now. So I am on there.
Interested to know why you think that, because I think so too. What are your thoughts on LinkedIn?
We need to.
No, do we?
Yeah,
right,
we really
okay.
do.
I'm sorry.
We've been queuing everywhere, and you're just so in.
So,
that's another conversation.
So that could be another conversation. But
Suzi, thank you so much. That was it was really just wonderful.
On.
Thank you. We'll be in touch with some follow-up emails and some of the questions and bits and pieces. But really, thank you.